If I told you that you are the one stopping yourself from becoming a law enforcement officer, the things you're saying, the things you're doing are getting in your own way, would you believe me? Let's discuss. Hey, before we jump into this one, listen, those gifts are in the description for you. If you haven't used them yet, definitely jump in there and get them, whether you're listening on the audio podcast or YouTube. They're down in the description. The Getting Started workshop will walk you through every phase of the hiring process so that you know what to expect, which knowledge is power in this instance. And there's some hidden bonuses in there for you too. Additionally, if you have something specific to your hiring process and you're worried maybe you're not articulating yourself correctly as you're going through these polys and these board interviews and psych interviews, jump on for a free one-on-one coaching call with myself. I'd be glad to sit down with you and discuss anything pertaining specifically to your hiring process. Now, let's jump into it. You're going through the process. You get the big background packet. You're sitting at a board interview. You're sitting worse at your background interview or maybe your poly, and then even your psych, right? And you say to yourself, I don't feel like I'm coming across correctly. I know what's in my head, but when I say it or I verbalize it, it's being interpreted a different way. How much is that hurting you? And the answer is it's probably hurting you a lot. If you cannot clearly articulate yourself, then you are already struggling. Every single one of my coaching members, it doesn't matter which coaching they're in, every single one of my coaching members, the first thing we sit down and do is teach them how to articulate themselves, because you're doing nothing at that point in time if you can't explain, certain events, especially the hurdles in your background. If you go in and you try to tell someone, hey, I had this issue happen, but it wasn't a big deal and it was easily resolved. It was all a misunderstanding. But you don't convey that correctly, it's going to leave your background investigator or your examiner questioning, is this person just trying to lie here? Is this person? And they do think that, realize that they have people that try to lie to them all the time through these hiring processes. And while it's not great for them to imprint that onto you and your hiring process, it's an inevitable fact. And you've heard me say this before, you cannot account for human error. People are always going to have that implication of, hey, can I believe this person? Not to mention law enforcement. They're always constantly investigating situations anyway and wondering if anyone telling them the truth to begin with. So you have to take that into consideration. Is your story believable? First of all, let's back up. Is it honest? Are you telling the truth? Great. Now, if you try to elaborate on it to better convey yourself, but you go into an opinion-based elaboration, you're actually not being honest, right? You're just elaborating. You're actually being overt is what I like to call it. Now, if you're being honest and you're specific about it, give me an example. Let's use this one. Hey, Frank, have you ever had any speeding tickets? Yes, I've had speeding tickets I've had moving violations in the past. Okay, how many moving violations have you had in the past? Oh, I've had 2. I've had one when I was 17 for driving too fast. Okay, what happened with that one? I went to court, it got reduced down and I paid it. Okay, and then have you had any others? Yes, I was given another one when I was in the military. I can't 100% recall the time right now, but I was given one. I was probably about 21, and ultimately that one was dismissed. Okay. And then have you had any other violations on yourself? Any traffic camera tickets? I do have multiple traffic camera tickets, but they're not mine. They're actually my wife's, because she would constantly get a ticket at this one spot on her way to work every day. Right? That's believable, right? That's believable. Opposed to if I say, well, I did get a bunch of traffic tickets, but I'm not sure if it was me or my wife. So I think it was my wife. She definitely did it, and it wasn't me. It was all her. No, just own it. Yeah, me and my wife have a couple. She would constantly get some on her way to work in a certain location, same spot every time. It was very frustrating to pay this. Right? That's believable. It's honest. It's believable. And I'm not coming down on my wife. It is what it is. But at the same point in time, it's it's how you sell it, right? If I sit here and say, I'm not sure if it was my wife, or no, you might, if you're not sure if it's your wife or you, just own it. It looks authentic when you just say, hey, yeah, me and my wife have gotten a couple. Were they yours or hers? I couldn't tell you. Let's just assume that they were mine, right? Because I couldn't tell you. I'm sure that a couple were hers, but out of the three we had, let's just say two of them were mine, right? And if you own it just like that and go down that route, then it usually just gets breezed over. Now, if you have something where, me and my wife, yeah, we've gotten some traffic tickets on a speed trap before. Okay, when was the last one? Oh, last week. Okay, how fast were you going? Or how fast did it say you were going? Oh, 55 and a 35. No, that looks horrendous, right? So I hope you're not doing that. One, don't be doing that, right? Don't get that ticket. But that's the type of one where you say, hey, we did receive a camera ticket in the mail for excessive speed. I'm pretty sure it was my wife that had done it, or my significant other. It doesn't matter. But at the same point in time, we looked at the date. It was in her vehicle. I'm assuming that that's what it was, because that's the time she'd be commuting to work, right? You don't want to sit here and be so specific if you're unsure, but at the same point in time, you can use deductive reasoning to come down to what is an acceptable answer to that. Just be cognizant. If you're getting speeding tickets right now while you're going through the hiring process, those are going to be some major hurdles, because anything that's current and right now, they're going to look at like, hey, we don't want to put someone behind the wheel of a police cruiser that maybe doesn't follow policy, procedures, and law. All right, moving on here. If you're going into these process and you're being overt, you have to stop that. You have to stop that right now. You need to be honest, right? But don't try to put your own spin or flair on anything. Just go in and explain the situation. Hey, I have done XYZ, or XYZ happened this way. It was resolved this way. That's the story. Okay, can you elaborate more on that? There's really not much more to tell. I did this at this time. I'm not happy about it or proud about it, and it's been 10 years ago, and I've done this. Let's say marijuana, right? Let's say you've used marijuana in the past. Yeah, hey, I used marijuana when I was a kid, about 5-10 years ago, whatever it is, and you say, hey, yep, I've used marijuana, or I've experimented with marijuana in the past. Now, you don't get to say you experimented with marijuana if you've used it consistently, right? We'll use that. I'm not going to put a number on it, but let's say consistently. You don't get to use that excuse as I consume, or I experimented with marijuana. You can say, hey, I have used marijuana, right? You can always try to paint it in the best light possible. Yes, I have used marijuana in the past recreationally, right? But it was greater than 5 years ago. That sounds a whole lot better. You have recreationally, and then you have experimentally. And those are the two things that you kind of say. Don't go in and say, hey, I've used marijuana in the past multiple times or 500 times. Stay away from that. Yes, I've used marijuana in the past recreationally. How many times? If you cannot honestly recall, it's not a good look, but you cannot honestly recall. You can just say, hey, I can't recall, but it was recreationally, but I haven't used anything in 10 years, right? That looks great. That sounds great. And you can apply any timeline you want to this, right? You can 2 years, 5 years, whatever you want, whatever's honest and truthful. But if you go into it and say, and you elaborate saying, yeah, I used to consume marijuana all the time when I was with my, actually, you know what? we won't use my words. I'll use the words that I constantly, I used to smoke all the time with my buddies in college. And, I don't do it anymore, but I used to smoke all the time with my buddies in college. And it was just something that we did. I can't remember. It was a bunch though. I know it was a bunch. I can't remember how much. And, but like I said, I don't do that anymore. I'm done with that. And I haven't touched anything in a few years. While the underlying message is the same, you're just not conveying it professionally. If you say it like that, it sounds horrendous is really what it is. So keep that in mind, right? You're articulating yourself is critical in them understanding, hey, this is who I am now. Was I perfect? No, but this is who I am now. And I'm making strides to pursue my law enforcement career, which is why I don't associate with those individuals anymore, or I don't use that substance anymore, or I haven't had a speeding ticket in this long, or my credit was bad, but I've significantly improved it. Or I was bouncing around between jobs, but now I've been employed for 2 years. All this stuff makes an impact, right? And it doesn't even have to be some grandeur thing. It doesn't have to, hey, I've been with the same company for 6 years. No, hey, I've been with this company now for 2 years, for 3 years. That looks great. Even a year of steady employment looks better than saying, oh, hey, I've jumped ship to different employments every 6 months or every 9 months. And it just, those are the things that make them reserve. And the last thing you want is to have these little minute hurdles when you have other major hurdles in your background. So if you have a major hurdle that says, hey, I had this, it was all a misunderstanding, but I had this. Oh, and by the way, I got a speeding ticket 6 months ago. Those two things are not helping you sell yourself. And then circling back around, being unable to clearly articulate why it happened and having a good reason, not excuse. There's a difference between an excuse and a reason, right? A reason is saying, hey, this happened. Here's the reason, right? Here is the events that led to this, whether they're good or not. This is the reason. I own it and I'm moving past it. It's so much better to just own something and move past it rather than to try and mitigate it and look like you're lying and trying to come across as trying to manipulate the situation, right? Hey, I was involved in a motor vehicle accident, a year ago. Okay, so scenario, right? So you're saying, hey, I was involved in a motor vehicle accident a year ago, and you can articulate like this: I was pulling out, and this person was just driving crazy, and they smashed into the front end of my car. But then I'm going to pull that police report, and I read the police report, and it says individual made a lane change. Talking about you, right? Individual made a lane change without being clear and ended up colliding with their left front end to the individual's right front end. That paints a whole different picture. And that's how concise a police report's going to be, especially if there's statements and witness statements and anything along those lines, or even insurance statements if they're able to gain access to them. So all these, if you articulate it one way where you say, "Hell, this was the other person's at fault," but then the police report or official report may convey something different or doesn't quite articulate it the same way you did, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you might as well consider that department kind of a Hail Mary pass to if you get in. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying that they won't come back to you and ask you to further explain, but you get one chance to articulate things. Very rarely are they going to say, hey, walk me through this again. And if they are, that's usually a bad sign because it means they may have found something that's different than what you're explaining. So you get one chance to articulate stuff. And most people don't even get to that point. Sometimes they poorly articulate it on their background packet in a written correspondence that they don't even get to verbally explain it. All these type of things matter. So articulation is key when you're selling yourself and when you're applying to these positions. Starting from your resume. As I said before, all my coaching members, they all start from their resume. If you cannot clearly articulate yourself on your resume with all your advantages and all your successes in life, which is what your resume is, if you can't articulate that when you have no pressure on you, there's no time limit, you just have to write a resume, sit down and write it today. Go write your resume today if you haven't. If you can't articulate yourself well on that, you're never going to be able to do it under pressure in front of a board interview, a psychological examiner, or a background investigator who's trained in interrogation and interviewing. Keep all this in mind. I'd like to say that it's as simple as just flipping a switch and you have it, but it takes time. It takes time to learn how to convey yourself and present yourself in an articulate and professional manner. But it is a learnable skill and something that all my members do every single day. So they can do it. If I can do it, you can definitely do it, right? So make sure you get out there and you're trying to improve yourself in that professional manner, right? Start learning how to clearly articulate yourself. Take out the filler words. Take out like, take out take out those filler words. It conveys unprofessional demeanor. Do your best. Practice in front of a mirror. That old trick really works. Let's circle it back around, actually. Now there's technology. Set your cell phone up and record yourself talking. Go back and play it. It is going to change exactly how you see yourself and what other people see as you convey yourself. All right. I hope this helps. Listen, those gifts are in the description. Use them. Please use them. They're there for you. I'm just giving them to you so that you can better yourself. Better yourself and get through the police hiring process. The Getting Started workshop is going to walk you through everything. There's some hidden bonuses in there that you're really going to like, and it's going to show you really where you are in your hiring process and how eligible you are. Additionally, if you have something specific to you, jump on a free one-on-one coaching call with myself. I'd be glad to sit down and discuss anything we can do to make your hiring process smoother, faster, and get you done as quick as possible. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.